A good day to all. My name is John David Riparip from BSMT2A, and together with
Carlangelo Perez
and Fabolar.
and Mr. James Quinonez will be joining us later. We will present a video presentation about the different types and components of FAA documents. So, the civil aviation regulations, or the different types of and components of FAA documents. So let's have an introduction first. Aircraft documents means all technical data, manuals and logs, books, and all inspection, modification, and overhaul records, and other service, repair, maintenance, and technical records, and that are required by the FAA to be maintained with respect to the aircraft, airframe, engines, or parts. In such terms shall include all addition, renewals, revision, and replacements of any such materials from time to time made or required to be made by the FAA regulations, and in each case, in whatever form and by whatever means or medium such materials may be maintained or retained by or on behalf of owner. So this is the first type and components of an FAA documents, the airworthiness directives. Airworthiness directives, or AD as we know, are legally enforceable regulations issued by the FAA in accordance with the 14 CFR Part 39 to correct an unsafe condition in a product. Part 39 defines the product as an aircraft, engine, propeller, and appliance. Airworthiness Directive, or AD, a regulatory document which identifies aeronautical products in which an unsafe condition exists and where the unsafe condition is likely to exist or develop in other aeronautical products of the same type design. It's prescribed mandatory corrective actions to be taken or condition or limitation under which aeronautical product may be continued to be operated. It means that the document this document identifies the products wherein it is in unsafe condition. Next reporter, please.
Airworthiness directives, and I'm first of all, I'm Neil Fabolar. ADs form part of the ongoing obligations of aircraft certification authorities under Part 21 with regard to continuing airworthiness of aircraft. They address recommendations for improvements or corrective actions to be implemented by the holder of the certificate of airworthiness. The issue of an AD has the effect of making such recommendations mandatory. The ADs contain mandatory instructions to carry out work on an aircraft, engine, propeller, or component in order to address an unsafe condition which exists or is likely to exist or could develop. Next slide, please. Airworthiness directives. It may be issued by any National Aviation Authority, or NAA, which has responsibility for the regulation of design of those aircraft or components. It is usual for NAA to require compliance with an AD issued by another NAA. With such responsibility with such aircraft are operated by or maintained by regulated organizations within a jurisdiction. Next slide. Advisory Circulars, or AC. Advisory circulars are informational documents produced by the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, to inform and guide institutions and individuals within the aviation industry as well as the general public. Advisory circulars are intended to be informative in nature and regulatory. However, many times they describe actions or advice that FAA expects to be implemented or followed. Next slide. Another advisory circulars. ACs can be distributed by the FAA to an audience of pilots, mechanics, operators, airport managers, manufacturers, and general public. The subject of advisory circulars typically involves aircraft, airports, flight school, pilots, operators, or maintainers. Advisory circulars can be directional, informational, or descriptive. Next reporter, please.
I'm Carlangela Perez. Advisory circulars are intended to provide advice and guidance to illustrate a means but not necessarily the only means of complying with the regulation or to explain certain regulatory requirements by providing informative, interpretative, and explanatory material. Next slide. Special Airworthiness Information Bulletin. A Special Airworthiness Information Bulletin is an informational tool that alert, educates, and make recommendation to the aviation community. Special Airworthiness Information Bulletin contain non-regulatory information and guidance that does not meet the criteria for airworthiness directive. Next slide. Special Airworthiness Information Bulletin are created by the US FAA and contain non-regulatory information and guidance that does not meet the criteria for an airworthiness directive. The decision whether or not to use a SAIB is made through the process outlined in FAA Order 8110.107, monitor safety, analyze data. Example of situation where the issue of a SAIB is appropriate include, next slide please, an airworthiness concern that has not yet been determined to be unsafe condition. The SAIB may reference recommended action but must clearly state that at present this concern is not an unsafe condition that would warrant AD action. Information on approved alternative method of compliance to an AD. A request for voluntary reporting of information on safety of a product. Next reporter, please.
My name is James M. Quinonez from BSA 52A. Supplemental Type Certificates or STC. Supplemental Type Certificates is a type certificate issued when an applicant has received FAA approval to modify an aeronautical product from its original design. The STC, which incorporates by reference related TC, approves not only the modification but also how that modification affects that original design. Supplemental type certificates an approval to carry out an aircraft type modification which is deemed by the Airworthiness Authority concerned to be a sufficient change to the original design of an aircraft type to require a specific validation. For example, an operator might wish to install an in-flight entertainment system on their aircraft, which should involve complicated modifications to the electricity supply system on an aircraft. Alternatively, called a supplemental type certificate. Type certificate datasheet. Certificate datasheet includes the general information about the design such as dimensions, wings loading, limiting airspeed and required placards and markings, control surface travel, engine installment, and where applicable, approve engine propeller combinations. In practice, the datasheet is more likely to be a lengthy document or an electric file. Type certificate datasheets. The type certificate datasheets database is a repository of make, and model information. The TCDS is a formal description of the aircraft, engine or propeller. Its lists limitations and information required for types certification, including airspeed limits, weight limits, thrust limitations, etc.
Thank you for listening. I hope that you have learned something new today. Once again, my name is John David P. Riparip from BSAMT2A.
And I'm Neil Fabolar from BSAMT2A.
And I'm Carl Angelo Perez from BSAMT2A.
Thank you for listening. And I am James M. Quinonez. Thank you.